All right, this is the October video chat. I have a few announcements this time. The first is I'm kind of running about a month behind because I originally wanted the Outrun game dungeon out in August. And then I thought, the next one would be better for September. And that's the one I've been working on. And I could definitely get it out this month, but it's not Halloween themed. So I'm thinking, okay, I better push that to November. So that's this is going to be a good one though. Like if you like the Deus Ex episode, this is going to have some similarities to that one thematically. This is one of those where it's not a very well-known game, and I'm looking at it, it's just like, oh wow, there's a lot here. It's interesting. I'm currently working on the Halloween one to make sure that's done ahead of time so I could actually have a smooth Halloween. That never seems to happen, but I think the secret is to kind of lower my ambition. But yeah, so it's it for, and then there's those other side videos that are still just kind of getting a little bit of work on here and there. Let's see. Oh yeah, other announcements. YouTube has started getting, or at least it started hitting my region also, more aggressive about you are using an ad blocker and, giving like veiled threats if you keep using it. So I'm thinking, yeah, that is exactly what I want. Like, I'm sure that'll really help my audience numbers if it's threatening to like temporary. I don't even know what the plans are for if you're using an ad blocker too many times or something. So this is kind of like pushing up the timetable for me of something I was sort of meaning to do anyway, where try and mirror most of the videos on other platforms. Except I'm not even sure what to use now. There's, I mean, I haven't kept up with them or know what the limitations are, but so, yeah, feel free to weigh in on like what's like the second and third most viewed platform that you can upload like a longer form video on. I have no idea at this point. Okay, see somebody's saying BitChute. I've heard of Odyssey also. I've heard of Rockfin and Rumble. I mean, I don't know. So somebody's saying, Ross, aren't all your videos on your website? No, the website's just sort of a portal for the YouTube host. Okay, Vimeo. I mean, if it was, geez, I forget there was the name of the other one, like Motion or Metavision or something. I don't even remember. I'll have to look into the. I'll have to look into video platforms that my videos will qualify for, because some of them, because I was looking through some lists and they're like Twitch. I mean, not Twitch. Well, yeah, Twitch is just for streaming and just clips. And they mentioned Twitter, but it has like 120-second limit. It's like, okay, well then no, So yeah, Daily Motion. That's what I was thinking of. Thank you. So yeah, feel free to give suggestions. There's somebody I trust to help me with this, and they'll be able to upload all of them elsewhere, and I'll probably give them a percentage cut of whatever they make else. Okay, somebody's saying kick.com. I don't know anything about that one. I mean, these aren't like that realistic alternatives. It's going to probably be for like a small minority, but who knows? If they get really aggressive with the ad blocking, maybe we do see one of these start emerging. So, I mean, I would re-upload, Civil Protection, Freeman's Mind, Game Dungeon, and maybe miscellaneous side videos. I don't think I'd bother with like anything on a Curse Farms junk. I probably wouldn't even put the video chats up there. So it would be kind of like a second-rate service, but if you're somebody who just does not want to go on YouTube, then I want to try to be accommodating. So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's not really a realistic alternative for me, but let's see. Okay, but yeah, that's. I hope to roll that out like hopefully this year. That's. I mean, again, it was something I was considering anyway, but I'm thinking, this is probably like less than 1% of all viewers. It's like, but if YouTube's making it more aggressive so that it gets to the point where you just can't even get on YouTube if you have ad blocking, or maybe just like script blocking stuff. I don't know. Then, okay, let's see. I mean, it's going to be kind of an arms race anyway, because I imagine like the ad block companies are going to release fixes as soon as they're out. But that's why I don't even know what YouTube's doing, because I think I read that like, with like enough circumventing, they'll like ban you, or I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, there's no question in my mind. I'd rather, I mean, the ad revenue helps, but I mean, I've always seen this as me pressing my luck. And of course, I would rather you watch the video with no ads than not watch it at all. So, it's, um, uh, yeah, that pretty much sums up my views on it. Let's see. I guess there might have been other announcements, but, oh yeah, well, I guess there was a little bit of news, but that one was the CEO of Unity got let go. So I figure that could mean one of two things. That one, this really was all of his idea, and the investors finally got wind of it, and they're like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" and got rid of him. Or the investors were completely on board. They realized this was hugely unpopular, and they're using him as the sacrificial fall guy. Who knows? However, this does establish one thing, because I said this either means they are so detached from the user base that they just have no idea what they're doing, and it's like a kid playing with a gun, or this was some maneuver to like bump it up temporarily to cash out and then just let the company burn. The fact that they're backpedaling means that it's the former. They did not know what they were doing. They had no idea that they were going to get this kind of backlash. So, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, I'm not even working on the Unity engine, but I mean, I could have told you, like, you are absolutely playing with fire if you do this. Implement the changes in this way. So, I mean, just on a theoretical level, is. Let's see. Somebody's asking. Yes, I have played Frostpunk. I don't really plan to make a game dungeon on it, but I'll see. Oh yeah. Okay. And the other news was, this was pretty recent. The Microsoft's got the UK stopped resisting them buying Activision, so it sounds like it's a done deal now, which I think is unfortunate. I think the people. I think the people supporting this are like looking at it through like a very short-term lens. I mean, I've seen too much of what Microsoft does in the long term. Again, if you're wondering, just think back to the original Xbox One reveal, and that's like that's what Microsoft, that's their vision for gaming, I think. And I was thinking, like, the more immediate future for PC gaming, I mean, right now, to the best of my knowledge, you cannot run Windows 10 or 11 and refuse updates and use the Windows Store. So if you have anything on the Windows Store, like, you basically have to accept updates for the OS. They've made it so it's essentially intertwined. And, so that kind of means that, unless you accept all updates coming towards you, I mean, you're basically going to be locked out of anything through the Microsoft Store. And I imagine they'll use this to kind of push more games to the Microsoft Store. I mean, they've pushed plenty already. I mean, like what? Forza Horizon 3, I think Forza Horizon 4 they backpedaled on, not like they did initially, but then they made it so it didn't requirement. Microsoft Flight Simulator, like some of the Gears of War games. I think like the Crackdown sequel, or I know there's some others, but so maybe they're backing off on it, but maybe not. So I don't know. Microsoft is pushing way more games to Steam than the store needs to. Well, here's the thing though. If they push it to Steam, but it requires a connection to like a Microsoft account, it's basically the same thing. So it's like, you know, how you'll like buy a game on Steam, but then it requires Uplay or something like that, or requires Origin, even though both those companies have renamed their service. So, yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I hope they don't release a lot of great games. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's sort of something I was following. Their Starfield apparently had a requirement for hardware. It had a hardware check built into the EXE for it, and it was blocking a lot of people, even if they had hardware that was fast enough for it. And even then, I felt like it was kind of ridiculous, because I bet you could run that game on pretty meager hardware if you like turn settings really low, or you know you're okay with a slow frame rate or something, or low resolution. But and it looks they were touting the solution as updating Windows, but it looks like that was completely false. Like there were some people that released DLLs for it that they just got rid of the check, and it runs fine on older copies apparently. So I feel like in the future we might see more stuff like that, where it's like, gee, the game doesn't run. Guess you better update Windows and whatever we're bundling it with. So I don't know. So I'm saying, what kind of game would gatekeep access via hardware checking? Starfield. Starfield does. I haven't played it, but I mean, I heard somebody. Well, actually, was it one of the people who helps me with the sound told me about that. So I investigated it, and like, yeah, it is blocking people. Except I'm not even sure. It's one of those things where you can't tell if it's like incompetence or like kind of a conspiracy thing. But I'm leaning towards conspiracy, just because why block people? Like go out of your way to block people. Like because what I would do is like, okay, you want people to have like an optimal experience and don't want it to look bad. What you should do is just have a pop-up message that says, we've detected your hardware may not be ideal for Starfield, and you might suffer performance. Do you still wish to proceed? Yes or no? That's all you need. That's literally all you need. And then just click on yes, and then you're not blocking people. So, interesting times for games. And the abuse of power portion of the stream. I was thinking, yeah, this was going to be for Warcraft people, especially. This is just a whim of mine, but I was remembering this meme that I can't find now, where it was for World of Warcraft, and it said something like, the caption said something like, when you let your friend use your account for the weekend or something, and you come back and you're riding a bomb or something, and the picture had this gnome and it was riding some sort of like rocket explosive as a mount or something. And I was thinking, I was curious. That piqued my curiosity, and I can't find it at all now. So if anybody has seen that or knows what it is, you can contact me about. Yeah, my email's russwscott@gmail.com. But let's see. Yeah, okay, so I think that's it for announcements. I'm basically going to do this and go back to Halloween editing. I think I have a good game for it this time. I don't think this is one people will be expecting. That's the way to put it. But any teasing on the Halloween episode? It's Resident Evil-ish. I'll give a hint. It's Resident Evil-ish. So you can try to guess which game it is. Let's see. Is there a specific period of time in history that you feel like it would be cool or interesting to experience? And they're saying you experience it any way you like. Spectator, ghost, whatever. And the person who posted this sounds like they wanted the Back to the Future experience and go back to the 50s. Yeah, I mean, I guess... I guess it might just be mostly aesthetics, but I've always kind of liked the colonial America and Europe 1700s setting. Like I like how the buildings look, the way people dress. That would have been before cars, so that would feel different in itself, I don't know. I just like that setting. Maybe it's because I got to see Williamsburg when I was younger. I mean, colonial Williamsburg. But I think that would be neat to see. Yeah. So I wouldn't be terribly picky, though. I guess colonial America or England, just because I speak English, so I could understand what people are saying. Other countries, it would look neat, but I wouldn't understand very much. So. Yeah, and somebody's mentioned the French Revolution. Well, it might be different if you're actually it's different seeing it in history or fiction because it's not real in the same way. Whereas if you're actually seeing people get killed, my brain distinguishes the two between fake kills or kills that happened hundreds of years ago versus ones that are like right in front of you. So I'm not actually seeking that the real thing. Let's see. When you're watching a movie, how much are you focused on the technical details of a scene? Things like camera work, lighting, shot composition, costumes, and set design, etc. How often do you find yourself studying how a movie or scene was made? And how often do you look at behind the scenes or bonus features for a movie? I don't look at behind the scenes stuff so much now. But as for studying scenes, I generally don't do it unless it's exceptional one way or the other. Like if it's exceptionally bad or if it's exceptionally good, then I really notice it. Like if it's like a really slick edit, then I'll notice it. Or like the lighting is particularly stands out, or the framing. So yeah, I don't like start thinking shop as soon as I watch one. Thankfully, that'll probably hurt the experience for me. However, that said, I am going to be studying the hell out of that prior to the actual filming of the movie, just to sort of, it's kind of like a cheat sheet for myself, because I don't have the kind of background to like extensively know what I should be doing with like depth of field here, or like how big the field of view should be for this shot and that sort of thing. I mean, I may not follow every convention, but it's like I want to make sure I'm doing stuff that I like, and for the stuff I'm not sure what I'm doing, I want to basically be copying someone who does know what they're doing. So yeah, I think I mentioned before I plan to use Raiders of the Lost Ark as a template, because I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite adventure movies. So there's nothing. I mean, I can't think of much to improve upon with that. So I figure whatever Spielberg in the 80s was doing, technically, I'm not going to go too wrong trying to copy that style. So that's yeah, because actually I saw an interesting, here, I'll make notes of this. I saw an interesting video not long ago where somebody was comparing the new version of Murder on the Orient Express to the one in the 70s. and he was a lot of what he was doing was comparing like the camera work and and like when they and the direction where like they were showing interviews and like in the original, you know, they're interviewing like each passenger kind of one by one, and you're getting an idea of it. Whereas in the new one, they're kind of cutting through, but like you know, you get a sentence or two from them to give like an idea of what their stance is, and then they just cut away from that, and then they're showing like lots of faster cuts, and he was talking about how what that people have said that like modern mysteries are more difficult to follow than older ones, and it might just come down to the editing and direction. And I was thinking, oh, it's like, oh, and I thought the new, I haven't seen the new one, but I was seeing the clips that he had on YouTube. And I thought it looked very polished and nice. However, I was seeing, yeah, these are kind of fast cuts, and this isn't helping to make it easier to follow. So I that's why I'm trying to model mine after an adventure movie, you know, where sometimes things are going fast and there's a lot of action, because it is gonna have that. But the what I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think I mentioned before. One thing I'm very much not a fan of are the like having a fight scene where there's lots of like really quick shaky camera cuts. Yeah, I think I showed in I think the Division episode. I showed some footage from Michael Bay where it's just like they're just shaking the camera around, zooming way in, and I'm thinking like, yeah, I am not going to be doing that unless I'm there might be like one or two quick shots where I intentionally want to disorient the viewer, and even then I might not. I'll just see what looks better. But I hate that crap. I mean, if yeah, I've heard that like for I think it was like some Jackie Chan movies, they like some of them did much better in China. I forget. I forget what the analogy was, but they were showing that like some of his Chinese movies, the camera work, you could see him do everything like that. And that those would get more. Those would be more popular than than like the American ones, or some of them where they would just kind of zoom in and do those quick cuts. I mean, quick cuts can have a place. I'm not. It's not like you can ever use them, but it's like know what you're doing. And I don't. If there's really cool action going on, I want to see it, and I would think the viewers want to see it too. I don't want them disoriented. Whereas if somebody is supposed to be disoriented, like the character, like they're getting sucker punched or blindsided, and you want to kind of convey that, then yeah, that's when you do want like the shaky cam and you know kind of disorient things. So that. Somebody's saying they think Lord of the Rings is the best camera work they've ever seen. Yeah, it could be. I mean, so that's the thing. When it's done well, I often don't even notice because I'm just kind of engrossed in the movie, and that's kind of the best way it should be. So, yeah, if there's, I'm not trying to break molds in terms of camera work or for the movie. I want it to like kind of stand on like just the general story and the acting, that sort of thing. So. I'm not. I don't plan to be avant-garde at all with what I'm doing. However, it might be a little more old school in the direction style, I guess. Let's see. So I'm saying if it's a continuous long take, it shows how both actors are getting physically exhausted from fighting. Continuous long takes can work for some things, especially. I mean, that can be an impressive feat in itself, but I know some people are just like amazed by it. Whereas, you know, if I see them going at it and then there's a camera cut and then it's from another angle, but it's easy to follow what happened, and let's say in reality they switched in between then, well, that's fine. You know, I'm not. Star Wars Episode 3's intro is epic. I don't even remember Episode 3's intro. So I guess I'd have to look at that. I think in 3, the main thing I remember was I do remember the theater scene. I remember liking that. It had a kind of a cool vibe where the Emperor's talking to him, and like, yeah, like Anakin's mad and kills some camp, and after he's, yeah, I remember just pieces of Episode 3, and then the lava scene at the end, and then the kind of forced no at the end. Let's see. Okay, more questions. Russ, in an older video chat, you brought up the idea of doing a rant video about misinformation. I thought that was an awesome idea, and I was wondering if you were still planning on making that video, or if the idea even went anywhere past the time you mentioned it. Yeah, I was probably thinking about something specific, but now I feel like it's... I mean, I could do that, but I think I need a lot of like really bulletproof examples of different kinds, because it's gotten even more complicated, I think. Because, like, I think, okay, maybe this is just in my head, but I think for some people, when they think of misinformation, like there's different levels of ways you can do it. And I think I've seen some people fall for is, like, say you have like information that's wrong, like it's like really obviously wrong, and then there's a source that like disproves that, and it does a pretty good job of it. And I'm thinking of like two splintering aspects of it from there. However, let's say that source does address like a surface value complaint of the wrong information. However, the wrong information might have a silver lining that actually is correct, and the authority or whatever correcting that never addresses that aspect of it. So that doesn't help people get closer to the truth, especially when it's complicated. Like there's a nuance. Yeah, somebody's saying flat. Yeah, flat Earth. And in the other scenarios, okay, let's say in that scenario, like the science or the information is all like 100% above board. But then the same source that kind of disproved the bad information does something where they are definitely wrong on something else, and they don't practice due diligence on that. Well, then that erodes the whole faith in the institution or the people checking the information, so that it kind of swings back and forth. I mean, it's, yeah, somebody's saying, isn't like 75% of Instagram and TikTok misinformation with all the filters and such? See, I feel like that stuff's like the easier level. The harder level is when you get to like major institutions putting out false information. Like I put on my AI chart the example of, the New York Times saying there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. See, that's something we only find out after the fact. But now that you know that they did that, that doesn't necessarily mean that if they say something else like related to war, that it's false. However, it means that they've been proven wrong in the past. So now you need to be way more skeptical. And sometimes it's for everything. Sometimes it's only for certain topics. Yeah, and actually, I'm kicking myself because I wanted to show an example of this sort of thing in the next. Well, not the Halloween game, the game dungeon that was supposed to be next. And I can't. It was this article I saw. I don't even remember where it was. It was like Associated Press or Reuters or CNBC or I don't know. It was like a major news outlet. And like, it's bugging me so much because I'm probably my memory on it is kind of fuzzy, and I tried going back through my history and I wasn't able to find it. But essentially, what they were doing, this wasn't exactly misinformation. Whoa, I got out of focus. This wasn't exactly misinformation, more like misdirection and misleading. It was. I'm not even sure if it qualifies as lie by omission. But where the article was talking about how because of the pandemic, I think it was, they're saying because of the pandemic, or maybe some sort of economic downturn or something like that, that less people are working. Again, my memory's hazy on it, but I remember rereading it like twice just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating this part. And they were saying they're saying like, yeah, maybe like productivity was down or something like that, or more people were working from home, or but yeah, some sort of economic output was down. That was the main message. And it said something, I swear, it was like, now you might think this is better for the environment because there's less resource use. It literally said, like, you might think this. And then it goes on to talk about how, well, no, this could be problematic for older people who are going to need that money later for retirement. I'm thinking, wait a minute. They never, and I checked it like 2 or 3 times. They never came back to that point where they say, oh, you might think this is better for the environment. Because that sentence implies like, oh, you would think that, but then we have information to make you think otherwise. Except they never did, except they never came back to that. I was like, wow. This is like in a major news outlet too. And I was just, because they changed topics. I mean, yeah, it was like a misdirection, like a mainstream news thing. So I was going to say, if you have like really good examples of this sort of thing in news where they're either saying false information, or a common one they do is lie by omission, where, you know, everything they're saying is true. However, it's framed in such a way that by purposefully leaving out information, it changes your entire perception. Like what if I said like this guy on the street, complete stranger, he just attacked me, and like he should be arrested. And let's say everything I said is true, except I'm leaving out the part how just before he attacked me, I was actually pickpocketing him, and we never mentioned that part. We never mentioned that. And then like the internet starts bandwagoning on how like, this guy is evil and everything, and you suppress the part where I'm pickpocketing the guy that attacked me. And that's how lie by omission works. You know, I cannot, I wouldn't say one thing that's false, but if I'm leaving out critical information, then then it changes the whole framing of it. And I think that's a real big one. And I think another really huge one I think is downplayed. Again, I don't know if this is like a blurry line of misinformation, but I think it affects so much is the framing of something, where the information is being presented to you in such a way to try to take this side or that side, or maybe somewhere in the middle, when the reality is this. Both these stances are terrible, and there's a much better view on it that's just not even being mentioned. Like, I'm trying to think. Geez, I was trying to think of an example. Well, I'm sure there's much better examples of this, but yeah, I think I would need help, like coming up with, because I'm good with the logic, but I need like, if I'm explaining this, I can't just have something that's like kind of half-assed example. I need like a really concrete example for each method. And then even better if it's something kind of like big from like a major institution or news organization or something, because that can happen sometimes. But one I was thinking of is like, well, with games as a service, that, like, yeah, I think I got it, like a minor Twitter argument with this guy when they didn't understand how like better funding for devs doesn't like make the game, doesn't help games survive. And it's like, well, no, that's a completely independent variable, whether they have better funding or not. Because, so see, this might even be a great example. That's why I have to really put thought into the examples. The framing was trying to be shifted towards, well, that's kind of a misdirection off the original topic. I know there's a better example of what I'm thinking of. I was trying to think about one today, but just didn't have one handy. But uh, man, or I did, but then I forgot it again. But yeah, I guess like if well, I guess that one sort of works. Well, okay, like let's say devs have a lot of funding, so they're able to support a game like years longer than they would have been able to. But then, but so they're asking for like microtransactions or donations or something like that. But then you have people saying that like, oh well, no, they don't need that extra money. They can do it on their own. Well, but no, this is a bad example. Damn it. But well, anyway, the concept is you have two choices. All framing it revolves around those two choices, and the idea is they're both rigged and they're both bad choices. Like things tend to go off in my head actually when I'm presented those. And like sometimes people will think, well, this is like the least worst option, so we go with this one. And they think they're being rational when they do that. And in a certain sense they are, but they're not being wise. Because if it's like a rigged game and the lesser worse option is, and like the entire debate is between the terrible option and the less worse option, whereas other options exist that are far better than either of those two options or three or whatever, then that's a framing issue. But I feel so dumb I don't have an easy example on hand. But yeah, it's... Oh, okay, yeah. I think I thought of one. Well, see, I have to think about whether this is which kind of, not misinformation, but like, this one could actually be benign, just like a misinterpretation. Yeah, no, this was something else I was thinking of. It was, well, one example I was thinking of, see, I'd have to think about how this falls into, like, which sort of category this falls into. But one argument I've heard about, like, downplaying the threat of global warming is that I think there was, like, a NASA report showing there was, like, increased vegetation because of, like, the planet warming. So, some people are looking at this and saying, well, that means we don't have to worry about it because it's going to be even better for the plants, which will absorb more CO2, so everything's fine. Well, there were two issues that I saw with that, where it's kind of like a little misleading. One is, best I can tell, the temperature is going to keep on rising. So even if you have more vegetation, that could just be kind of like the eye of the storm sort of thing. Like in the center, if you're in the eye of the storm, it looks like the storm's over and things are fine, but it's not. So so you might have this kind of spike where you do have more vegetation. That's kind of a sweet spot for plants. But then if the heat keeps on increasing, then at a point, then that's too much even for the plants. In fact, I think there was some evidence showing that recently that parts of the rainforest, it's like too hot for photosynthesis of most of the species there. So it looks like it might be all right, but if it keeps rising, it's really just like a false sense of security. And the other thing was, when you have like a real rapid shock to the ecosystem like that, the survivors aren't necessarily the ones we want necessarily. Like for instance, we're fans of edible plants. Whereas if the only survivors are essentially just weeds we can't eat, then they crowd out all the others, then that's a problem for us. Or like with animals, like let's say we lose a lot of like birds or squirrels. However, we make it right back up with mosquitoes or like cockroaches. It's like, well, the birds and squirrels are kind of preferable, or especially animals that we eat. So it's you still have the loss of biodiversity, and whoever's left standing isn't necessarily the one that's on top. But man, I feel so dumb. I don't have a better example for the framing issue. But anyway, I feel like framing is kind of underplayed. And well, I think I did mention this in the Deus Ex episode, was that another big thing is what media chooses to focus on. Because I mean, there are stories that intentionally it's kind of inconvenient if some rise to others. Like even people who think that they're think that they're seeing the full picture. It's like, aha, this is what they don't want you to think. Sometimes that's also misdirection, and then like the stories that are really important just get like no attention at all. So it's some what I've not always, but I've found sometimes the biggest controversies just aren't really covering like the most important issues. It varies. It varies, but okay. So I might do the I don't know. That's not one I have in the pipeline at the moment. Misinformation one. I am willing to do that one, but I think I would need like some really dynamite examples for like all sorts of different scenarios, and then I can make it as like a cheat sheet of like how to spot different kinds of misinformation. And man, I still feel pissed. I lost track of what that one article I saw was. Yeah, misinformation, misdirection, you know, and just like I would just try to like run down like kind of every different type, but. Well, actually, maybe somebody's already made a video like that, but yeah, it's. I want to say it's not quite as bad as like X-Files trust no one level, but it can get pretty bad as far as like trying to like verify information. And like I've seen so many sources compromised on various things that it's just. It can become a real hassle to try to get like accurate information. So I was saying, to me, controversial topics are more like distractions to what we really should be talking about. I'd say many of them are, not all of them though. Yeah, well, I guess a good rule of thumb is if left unaddressed, how many millions to billions die? And if the answer is probably zero, then yeah, it's probably a distraction. Like that's one way to look at it. But let's see. Okay, more questions. Do you have any favorite audiobooks and or audiobook narrators you can recommend? No, I basically never listen to audiobooks. I don't know, something about them just I don't know, it just always kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I'd rather just read books or like listen to actual people talking. I don't know, something about my brain just never really liked it. My parents listen to a lot of them though. But they're saying, have you been reading any newly released books recently, or do you find yourself drawn towards classic literature? I can go either way. I mean, I just kind of bounce around based on sort of the premise that I like. I mean, the premise sounds interesting. Like I read a book not long ago called Distraction by Bruce Sterling. It was science fiction set in future America, where about this guy running a political campaign, and things are pretty different. In the book, America has collapsed as an economic superpower. Things are much more fragmented. There's still the federal government, but it's much weaker, and you almost have like these mini fiefdoms. I forget how it's pronounced, among different states or governors. And they also, at one point in their history, they had these emergency committees come into place because there were too many crises and Congress was so paralyzed they weren't doing anything. and those have sort of become their own sort of like mini dictatorships of around the. So it had a few dumb things, but then it had a lot of stuff that I thought like, oh yeah, this is interesting. I get that some of this sounds plausible. So it was interesting, and I didn't even know when the book was written until I finished it. It was from what was it? It was from 1999. It could have fooled me. Like if you could have told me that book was released a year or two ago, I would have believed it. So it was yeah. So I mean, good science fiction can cover the whole spectrum, but I've been reading more science fiction lately, but yeah. Let's see. Okay, so more questions. Are there any German or Russian games that you like to see translated into English? Probably, but there's some, especially once you get to adventure games, there's like so many out there. I'm not even sure which ones I would pick. I'm not even familiar with so many of them. It's just that I've seen them kind of browsing through abandonware in the past that, yeah, I'm sure there are, but I don't know which ones. So. John Romero has a condition known as hyperthymesia, which means he can remember most of his life with incredible detail. Only around 60 people in the world are documented to have this condition. Romero sees it more as a blessing than a curse. Would you want a condition like this to never forget, or would that be too much of a burden? No, not really. I mean, I feel like, well, I mean, I guess I would remember what that article was then, but I imagine that would be kind of taxing on your brain. And the stuff that's like really, usually the stuff I find really interesting, I remember highlights of anyway. And for other things, that's why I'm keeping lots of lists of things. So yeah, I don't think I'd really want like the ability to just remember everything. So let's see. Oh yeah, this. If you could go back in time and yell at or give a stern talking to some historical figures who screw things up or cause things to screw up massively with the chance of preventing the screw up, who would it be and why? I'm not sure there's much that like one person talking to them would influence in such a dramatic way. Because what you have a lot of time in history is like you'll have historical figures that end up being in like the right place at the right time to make certain decisions, but usually if they never existed, there's a decent chance it would have resolved itself one way or another later, and something else would have been on top of it. And even then, the people causing huge problems aren't necessarily the type that are easily going to be dissuaded, usually. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of like any obvious examples, but it's yeah. I don't know. It usually, well, I mean, and the thing what I mentioned, it's not always true. However, we've been mostly lucky in the incidents where it really mattered. Because again, I'm thinking during the Cold War when we did have officers refusing to fire like a nuclear attack based on kind of faulty data or, jumping the trigger too quick. So obviously, if that person hadn't been there, the consequences would. Okay, yeah, maybe Chernobyl. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, okay, the operator of Chernobyl. But I mean, I think they still were kind of trying to be dissuaded. But yeah, see, somebody's saying World War II. World War II is one of those things where, like, let's say Hitler was never born. You might have had a similar outcome. It's not necessarily the same, but like you might have still had World War II. It just probably would have been under different conditions. Because the reason like Hitler I mean, because before the Nazis, you had the Weimar Republic, and before that, that was the result of how Germany was treated at the end of World War One. So it's like a chain of events. Now Hitler obviously made things horrendous, and we couldn't have done much worse than him. But that's what I mean. It gets complicated. But yeah, Chernobyl, we haven't had anything else on that level that bad, and that's one that left a scar on the earth. So, although who knows? See, even that one. Let's say Chernobyl didn't happen, Chernobyl, and then we kept on going, and then there was another careless incident that was even worse. Like, let's say the core hit the groundwater. So yeah, butterfly effect comes into play. It's yeah, it's tricky. But yeah, I guess I'll take it. I'll roll the dice on the operator of Chernobyl. Let's see. Okay. Has he ever talked about the adventure games he thinks have the best story? Saying how adventure games have the best, most. You mentioned in the tournament episode, adventure games have the best, most mature stories among video games. I'd love to know which ones he considers the best, besides the ones he covered in Game Dungeon. Yeah, I had to think about it. Like, I mean, that might be less true now, but like RPGs were sort of a runner-up. But I think what I was looking at, I mean, I don't know if it's like the best ever, but like the average was like so much better for adventure games compared to like any other genre in the past. Yeah, but I made notes of some. I'm kind of behind on some adventure games, so these are mostly older ones. But for goofier ones, I have Sam & Max Hit the Road, which is one of the funniest games I've played. Let's see. The Full Throttle, it's another kind of goofy one, but it's fun writing to it. Honestly, Beavis and Butthead Virtual Stupidity. This is the goofy ones. Or it's funny, it's for more serious ones, I have these are games I haven't covered on the show. Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers. That one kind of feels like a real murder mystery. It's a little goofier, but was it Laura Bow, The Dagger of Amun-Ra? I remember liking the writing to that. I haven't finished The Longest Journey, but it's kind of starting off that way. A more recent one that I feel like it was a little long-winded, but it had interesting parts, interesting writing for sure. Gemini Rue, that is an interesting plot to it. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, this is sort of a fun writing, but I honestly say this script is competitive with the original movies themselves, and probably outdoes the newer ones, which I haven't seen. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. I mean, look, if they had made a movie that just followed that script, I don't think there would be any complaints. I mean, they missed their window, obviously, unless they get a replacement for Harrison Ford. But I mean, that is a solid Indiana Jones story. Like it's, let's see, well, my memory's blurry on this, but I remember liking parts. It's not best ever, but I mean, it's like a mature storyline. Ripley's Believe It or Not, The Riddle of Master Lu, The Dig. Okay, so the thing is, the average adventure game could have a story that like appeals to an adult who reads books and is going to be able to process this. And they mentioned this on the Eternum episode. Let's see, Eternum came out. Okay, the Eternum came out in 1992. So let's compare what else. Let's compare like top games in 1992. Okay, here's some. We have okay, we have Kirby's Dream Land, Super Contra 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Wolfenstein 3D. Okay, we have Final Fantasy 5. I haven't played 5. I played a big chunk of 6, and that one does have like an extensive story. However, it gets I mean, I'm probably gonna get some hate for this, but it gets pretty kind of like Saturday morning cartoon kind of story in my eyes. Like I played several hours of 6 because people said like that's like the best of the Super Nintendo ones. And the atmosphere is great, you know, great music, great visuals and art. But like the story, it was just kind of feeling like pretty kind of like caricature-ish of the characters and everything. So that like I can only take this so seriously. And the point where I stopped, where I just quit the game, I'm just like, all right, I tried, was what? Where there's this big raid that they're trying to show, and the visuals, they're showing like these kind of Fisher Price characters. They're running up against the wall, then falling down, then repeating it. Running up against the wall, then falling down, repeating it. I'm just like, okay, this is just. I mean, we're just trying to be a joke here. So it's like, is the game like trying to be like funny, but it wants me to take this really seriously in other parts? It's just like, I don't know. It just wasn't meshing with my brain. So, I mean, it has a big, extensive story, but okay, I'm looking at other 1992 games. King's Quest 6. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's, you know, a fairy tale game, but, you know, that kind of treats you like you're an adult with following it. Star Trek 25th Anniversary. That's one I've played. I never finished it, but I played a big chunk of that one. That one feels like a Star Trek episode. I mean, it's, you know, they go down, investigate things, you know, get information. Yeah, it's if so that's about like on an adult level. Super Mario Kart, Mortal Kombat. Let's see, Batman Returns, The Addams Family. Okay, Alone in the Dark. Well, Alone in the Dark starts off with a little bit of story, then the rest of it's kind of just more an experience. You know, it's. Uh, I'm trying to look at other 1992 games. Oh, it looks like Dune and Dune 2 were. So the point is, like, adventure games for a long time, like real long time, were just yeah, Streets of Rage 2. Oh, it looks like Mickey's World of Illusion. Okay, we have Ultima Underworld, which I haven't played. I don't know how extensive the story is in Ultima Underworld. Yeah, because RPGs sometimes, you know, sometimes they'll hit at the same sort of weight level. But anyway, if you just take the average adventure game, like for just decades, the writing in them is so much more likely to be at an adult level and have a fully fleshed out story with conversations and complex characters, you know, or talk like the way real people might, than compared to pretty much every other genre. Though again, some of those RPGs could, I'll concede, RPGs could come in similar, but nowhere near the same frequency. So it's yeah. So I'm not. I mean, probably. I still need to finish Planescape Torment, and a lot of people have raved about Disco Elysium for writing. Here, let's see. Games of best writing. Let's see. Let me see what comes up. I've surely played some of these. Okay, this list isn't very helpful. We have Gone Home under best writing. No, we can do better than that. We have Alan Wake. I don't know. I mean, Alan Wake, it's a bit kind of. I feel like Alan Wake has more vibes than like kind of concrete writing. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of people mentioning Disco Elysium. Now I'll have to play it at some point. Okay, somebody's saying Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone expansion. I played chunks of The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 is absolutely making an honest effort to have adult writing. It wasn't quite grabbing me, but it wasn't for them lack of trying. So okay, we're seeing Portal and Portal 2. To some way, yeah. I mean, there's different kinds of writing too, because Portal, it's more like it does have lots of good writing, but it's not really like a narrative kind of game. It's like you're not playing for the story really. The story is kind of the bonus, kind of keeping it together and adding spice to it. So you can't. It's not War and Peace or something, you know. Should check the. Yeah, see, somebody's saying Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen is one I enjoy for the writing. Yeah, that one's kind of a mix. It's because on one hand, yeah, I feel like Legacy of Kain, on one hand, it absolutely is almost like on a, fun video game, almost cartoon level writing. But on the other hand, it has like it's much cleverer than you would think. So it's kind of Legacy of Kain's kind of half and half. If clever is even a word, may have been. See, somebody's mentioning Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger, I would put in that category also. Kind of half and half. Like it's. Yeah, see, somebody's saying mature stories are overrated. See, the thing is, there's multiple interpretations of mature writing because on one hand, it can just be dialogue that is intended for adults. So as in you're a kid, you're gonna have a harder time with these concepts or not get the nuances, or like this is stuff for grown-ups. But then there's also mature writing in that the sense that they tend to cover like more shocking material or else more like kind of drama laden stuff, and those aren't necessarily the same two things. So. Okay, I'm seeing a list of Dragon Age Origins. It's an effort was made. I would say that. I mean, they are trying to treat it like a story for adults. I'll give them that. It didn't really quite grab me. So, but yeah, the effort was there for sure. Oh, Silent Hill 2. Yeah, Silent Hill 2. It's kind of that one's another one where it's like the narrative is quite important. However, it's pretty cryptic too. So it's kind of like it's cheating a bit to call that best writing because it's kind of avant-garde and not completely clear. So it's the same way. It's kind of like judging a movie that's like more artsy, where I mean I think it does have good writing, but at the same time I can understand even if you're an adult that might not land with a lot of people because it's too kind of out there. But no, that's fair. Let's see. I'm seeing the Walking Dead series. Kind of. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the effort's there, but at the same time, it's like they're almost like going out of their way to milk the pathos, Uh, well, I should move on to some more. Okay, well, that's a good one. Somebody say Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid was the first game I played that made me think war wasn't fun. Yeah, but Metal Gear, I feel like kind of lands in the kind of half and half category, where it's, though, yeah, those, or it's half, yeah, it's sort of half feels like a comic book and half is actually being treated quite seriously, And when I say treated like a comic book, I mean like stereotypical comic book, you have a character with psychic telekinetic powers and, you have another one who can never miss, or stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of like a little bit like yeah, it's wacky in parts. So it's let's see. Okay, so I should move on. But yeah, for decade, I can believe that may not be the case as much now. But yeah, for decades, adventure games kind of stood alone for just having like the most kind of writing. Like if you were to even have, if you were to show a game to someone who hadn't played games and only read books, I'd say for a long time, adventure games were the only ones that would even have a prayer of them taking it seriously or considering it on the same level. That's the way I would put it. I think there was a Yahtzee episode or a Zero Punctuation episode where I think it was BioShock, where he's saying that the writing of like the average video game is like so far below like what the average book is. Although he was praising the writing in BioShock, and I don't know. I think he was too kind on that front. But all right, I should move on to more questions. Let's see. Oh, whoops, lost my place here. Have you ever had a crush on a video game character? No. I generally don't really get crushes on like fictional people, fictional women. I don't know. It's part of my brain just understands they're not real. So. Have you ever seen Half-Life Zero Viscosity? No, I haven't. Shoot, okay, it's an animation. No, I guess I haven't. Sorry about that. The art style looks interesting, though. You focus a lot on game visuals being destroyed, but what about gameplay, movement mechanics, balancing, and a million other aspects that make a game? These cannot be saved by AI replicating the game world and adding some default gameplay preset on top. Are there any chances to save anything beyond visuals without the help of law regulations? Yeah, well, the thing is, if you have all the assets to the game or something pretty close, like all the models, the textures, the maps, and that's ported over into like an engine like, well, probably not Unity now, but I guess like Unreal, it is a hell of a lot easier to try to recreate those mechanics by hand than to try to recreate all the visual assets. Like, because in some cases, it depends on the game, but like let's say it's a first-person shooter. Well, you could have like a first-person shooter template, and then you go in and say, okay, well, this weapon should have like this much kickback and like do this amount of damage or this range, have this kind of accuracy, and then you can move on to the next one. So in some cases, it's almost a matter of just entering in the right numbers, and that's just like so much easier. I mean, it can still be a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about like a order of magnitude less work if, again, depending on the game. Now, to get an approximation. Now, obviously, to get them all exactly the same, yeah, that can take a hell of a lot of work or even be impossible. But even then, that's the sort of thing the AI might be able to give you a leg up on also. Or if it is observing that, these NPCs drop after an average of this many hits, it might be able to take a guess in itself as to like what those values are, and that might be close. So, yeah, no, that's no, I get. I'm not trying to indicate that like that's the only part of the game that matters. It's that part can be far easier to reproduce. So, especially if you're working in like an existing engine, and if it's not like a highly unusual game doing stuff that has never been seen before, and it has kind of a, standard formula you've seen in many other games. So. Let's see. I have not played the System Shock remake yet. I've only played a little bit of the original System Shock, and then I decided to wait once I learned they were going to make a remake, so I figured I'll wait for the remake. So, yeah, maybe I'll start doing that soon. That's probably going to be a scary game. I've played System Shock 2, though. That's just one of my favorites. So. System Shock 2 is the reason I was kind of disappointed in BioShock. Sometimes when they're bored, they brainstorm some dream video games in their head. Genre, story, mechanics, theme, soundtrack, levels, every minute detail. Have you ever done this? Got anything to share? Not really, though. I mean, sometimes that's how I come up with episode ideas. Is I'll have an idea for a situation that I think would be really neat and can kind of expand on it in my head, but not to those kind of minute details. That sounds like your brain's better suited for that than mine. Let's see. Ross, when you record footage for Game Dungeon, do you record the first time you play it? Or do you play it through a bit first, then record footage you play in the game? Does it depend on the game, whether or not it's special first time, etc.? All of the above. It's happened for all of them. The one I have planned for Halloween, it's one I haven't played, but I just saw a snippet of it. I'm thinking, I feel like this one might work. So, well, I'm taking a bit of a gamble again, but I'll try my best to make it work. Let's see. Oh yeah, they're saying recently the game Deserts of Karak was updated to require a constant online connection, even though that wasn't a requirement when they released in 2016. Conversely, devs of 40K Inquisitor Martyr, an online-only RPG, stated that they have an end-of-life plan for the game when the servers shut down, even though they didn't specify when that will happen. What are your thoughts on this? Well, I mean, that's fantastic for the second one. I hope... I'm totally cool if they don't have a timetable for it. I mean, that makes sense. If the game's popular and making sales, why wouldn't they just kind of keep it on the same trajectory? I mean, I would want to hear specifics on the end of life, like beyond the shadow of a doubt that, they will have a way that you can play it even if they end support and shut down the servers. So as long as they're saying, yes, we will do that, and the company doesn't have a history of lying, like Ubisoft, or probably most of the major ones, then great. As for Deserts of Karak, yeah, that is, I mean, I would almost say that's potential lawsuit material, but I mean, good luck getting any headway on game preservation in court. I'd have to assume the GOG copy isn't doing that. I don't know. I haven't checked. I have the GOG copy of it. I don't think I should download it during the stream. I mean, it would be downloading, so it probably wouldn't tax the upload too much, but maybe it would. I don't know. But I imagine the GOG copy still works, so it's that they probably would just have to reject the update. Though it could have slipped by. I could see that slipping by GOG, but then if a bunch of people reached out to them, GOG would probably correct it and just bring back the old version, But yeah, that's a horrible precedent. I hope that doesn't become a thing, a trend. Because that would be awful. I mean, it's actually not as bad as just a game releasing that way, because 97% of the time that game's on death row, but the whereas you can at least obtain the older copy. It's just they might be removing the legal avenues to do so. Yeah, no, I guess I haven't heard of that before. Reversing it so that to make it on a lifeline. Does some part of you regret making Freeman's Mind, or can you look back on the first series fondly still? I ask because I've had regrets in regard to my work in the past, and when I hear something from someone that's far older when it comes to creating stuff on the internet. No, I don't regret it, but it's not specific to Freeman's Mind, but I don't know. I just don't like hearing myself a whole lot. Like, so once the video's done, I generally don't go back to it. So, like, even if I did a great job, although that said, for ones that have for like Civil Protection where it has like characters and it's not just me talking, I don't mind rewatching those more. Whereas if it's just me talking, it's like I'd rather just I don't know. I never really liked that, even if it's done well. But no, I don't regret it. I mean, geez, that really helped me. It's very likely that's the most popular thing I'll have ever done. So, I mean, but like this, I by my personal standards, I think the movie will far and away blow away everything else I've done in terms of quality. But I could easily see it not getting as many views as Freeman's Mind. So that's all right. Hey, it's not. It's not an issue, but yeah, I mean, I kind of regret making big mistakes in some of the game dungeons. Like I got some details wrong in Deus Ex with like stuff, and yeah, I did it again in the follow up when people correct. I'm gonna have to mention that again too about the what are they called? The aircraft that can rotate the turbine so they land down. I think there's a term for it, but I think somebody did show me a clip of one that did have a jet turbine. I was like, damn it, okay. So let's see. So yeah, VTOL, VTOL, vertical takeoff landing or something. So yeah, I regret making big obvious mistakes, but I usually try to patch that up in the follow-up episodes. So I mean, I'm not mortified by it, but I'm just like, damn it, It's like trying to get. It's like if you're trying to do something correctly, then you just trip and fall on the ground. It's like that. So, let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot. I forgot to look up the actor here. Oh, okay. I have to bounce around. Okay. Just saying. Curious about your opinion about dead games due to other media licensing expiration. For example, Forza Horizon 3 is unlisted and not anymore purchase. Okay, I read these and sometimes the grammar isn't always on par, and then I have to like stop and correct in my head as I read it. It's not purchasable anymore. It's claimed that the main reason is music license expiration. Well, yeah, Forza, that's not the same as a dead game. That's just a delisted game, and it's essentially abandonware. Though Forza Horizon 3 is one of those that is tied to, like, at least the PC. No, actually, I think. Yeah, okay, so for legitimate copies, I think Forza Horizon 3, there is maybe you can find like a secondhand seller of a key and still play it that way. I'm not sure on PC. And for like illegitimate copies, it either only works I think there's like it's not. I think they made not even a crack, but a bypass. I think like for the new, in order to run it on Windows now, you have to connect to like Windows Store and make an account and connect online. Or the other way, the only way to like run it on PC and like have it for keeps, regardless of what Microsoft does now or in the future, is you have to install an older version of Windows 10 and run a cracked copy of it. So yeah, that's the only way to do it. Like it won't run. Like I think like the cracked copies won't run on Windows 10 unless they connect to the Microsoft servers. So yeah, but however, the fact that you can technically run that older version on older Windows 10 build, then sure, then that makes it not dead in my eyes, or not on death row. Um, but yeah, I'm less concerned about somebody's saying, or we have to go to Linux. Can Linux run Forza Horizon 3? I mean, that wasn't that wasn't a exe game. That was what the hell was that? Microsoft tried to tout this alternative to exes, and I forget. I should know this, but I forgot the name of them. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, that's a DirectX 12 game that's has like heavy Windows dependency. Let me look up what this is. Alternative to exe Windows 10. Oh, what the hell were those called? I think they backpedaled. Yeah, UWP. Thank you, chat. Yeah, it's a UWP game. So, I mean, I don't think you can run that on Linux. So, well, I mean, you technically might be able to with like a kernel virtual machine running the older build of Windows 10. So, but yeah, but even then, yeah, I mean that one's still kind of like at risk-ish, because if you can only run it on the older Windows 10, that means it's pseudo linked to the hardware. So not exactly, but as parts get more and more modern, at some point they're not going to be able to run on Windows 10. So at that point, you're kind of limited by the hardware. So that it is kind of at risk. I mean, but I mean that's kind of the case with like a lot of consoles also. Yeah, Yeah. It's so yeah, well, Forza Horizon 3 is kind of a special case, but in general, I'm less worried about those if those have been cracked and you can still get them illicitly, because then the game's not dead. It's just you can't buy it legally. So, or you have to jump through. No, in some cases you really can't. I guess it depends if they had keys that made it to like third-party distributors, because sometimes if that happens, you can still get the game after the fact. Whereas I tend to focus on the dead games where no one on the planet is currently running it, because the original developer set up that dependency and then they shut it down, so no one can run it. Whereas if you have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to run it, that to me that worries me far less. So. Oh yeah, they're saying if you needed to cast your version of Gordon Freeman for live action, who would be your first choice? Anyone alive or dead, or a clone or CGI version of yourself is also on the table. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I didn't have an actor like jumping out to me, but I was thinking you would want someone who's like kind of like quirky and might be like a comic relief normally, and might be obsessive about petty things. However, you would also want an aspect of them that you realize this person is not a pushover and they're potentially dangerous. Like, and I found that like some people can absolutely have that look in their eyes, and others have sort of a vulnerability that don't. And he'd be the wrong. Well, he's the wrong body type and wrong age for this role. But one thought that kind of came to my head that kind of taps into a similar, like I had to stop and think about this. I've never really thought about this consciously, but one actor that came to my mind for this was in The Big Lebowski. John Goodman playing Walter. He kind of has some of that vibe. You know when he's just kind of, because you're hearing Freeman's thoughts, and you imagine a lot of this is going on in his head. And there's parts where he's just wearing his glasses and just kind of frowning as he's listening. You know, just like, you know, he's absorbing this, and you could tell he's thinking about what's being said. But and then when he gets angry, he gets really angry. So, you know, he kind of has that vibe to it. You see, somebody's saying Bryan Cranston. Okay, I've seen Breaking Bad. I have not seen a performance by Bryan Cranston that suggests he has the same level of just like aggressiveness without vulnerability to it. Like even in Breaking Bad, even when those scenes where he's kind of like, it still feels like he's mustering up his nerve and is becoming like more badass because of that. I did think of an actor who has that look in his eyes, though, and I need to look up what his name is. He was in. He actually played one of the cops in Seven. He was one of the Bobs in Office Space, the more fit one. He was also in this movie, I forget the name of, where he did play kind of like a maniac in it. Okay, I'm looking up Office Space. Maybe people will know but he has that look in his eyes. Like I could absolutely see him, and he could be like kind of wacky enough to be. Okay, John C. McGinley. That's he. Yeah, again, it's probably kind of old for the part now, but like he has a look in his eyes that suggests he could kill people if he had to, like and not lose sleep over it. But like yeah, so from my interpretation of Freeman, like yeah, what was the movie I saw where he was just like, where he did play a maniac? Yeah, the Belko Experiment. That was the one he was in. But I even got that vibe from him even before I saw that. But like, you know, so he's saying Gary Busey. Well, I think Gary Busey has I don't think he had. He's like a little too playful. I think the vibe I get from Gary Busey. Whereas I feel like Freeman can switch over into like 100% no nonsense mode. Like, yeah. So he's like the sort of character that in like a lot of comedies would be kind of like this obsessive, like uptight loser character, except he's dangerous. He's potentially dangerous, and that kind of it makes him in a different light. So it's saying Gary Oldman. Well, let's see. Gary Oldman has a range for sure, but I don't know if I've seen. Yeah, okay. I'm thinking. Yeah, because he was pretty off the cuff in True Romance. Let's see. Yeah, Gary Oldman could. I mean, Gary Oldman could do anything. I mean, as far as his acting, yeah, I could see him doing that. Okay. I don't know Paul Edward Blair. Let's see. Because you know, sometimes you can just get the musician. Okay, let's see. Yeah. He could probably do regular Freeman. Yeah. Okay, from looking at his face, I could see either one. Yeah, that's a good pick. Paul Edward Blair. Okay. Yeah. Wow. He could do either one. My interpretation or just regular Freeman. Okay, look up John C. McGinley and Nothing to Lose. Okay, I guess have I seen Nothing to Lose? Maybe I haven't. Oh wait, I have, and I forgot it completely almost. Yeah, I remember the scene where Martin Lawrence is telling him to buy Windows NT instead of Windows 95, but that's about it. Uh, so yeah, so yeah, a younger John C. McGinley would be a decent pick. He has, I think he has that range and could sell me as someone who can go full Survivor. He would just have to tone in how much he's enjoying it, because I notice he plays a lot of roles where you can kind of see like you can kind of see he's smiling behind his face. If you know what I mean. Uh, so he would have to turn that off. I'm sure he could, but yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of actors, but yeah. Well, that's why I'm kind of skeptical on the new Blade. Is the actor they've picked is like he looks like he has a vulnerability to in his face, like in his eyes, and like that doesn't seem like the right role for Blade. You want you want someone that's just like can sell you as just 100% fearless, will do whatever needs to be done. That kind of expression, and some people can carry that in their eyes, or some others don't. They're just just it's casting. Some actors are better for some parts than others. So. I mean, and some can surprise you too. Like some like you can, yeah. Like I remember it. Uh, like I saw the Star Wars prequels, and I wasn't too impressed by was it Natalie Portman in that. And then later I saw was it Leon, the professional. I was like, oh wow, she can act, So it's just like sometimes you don't always. Sometimes you don't always get to see the actor's range too in it. That it depends on the film, and like Hollywood likes to typecast people often. So, see, somebody suggesting Sam Rockwell. I don't know if I get quite the same. I mean, and Sam Rockwell has great performances, but I don't know if he has like the. I don't quite get like the sense of like inner fire in him that I would envision for my interpretation of Freeman. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain, but no, I mean I think he is. I think he's a great actor. It's just that like if we're talking like ideal character. Okay, more questions. Let's see. Did you see the pricing changes that Epic Games made for Unreal Engine? Will it affect the production and release of the movie? Okay, I tried to find them. I don't know if this is Epic's fault or if this is just Google getting so bad I cannot find the basic information. All I saw were news articles giving vague explanations of what's changing and not specifics. Like it's not just like I couldn't find just a list of concrete changes. I'm sure it's out there, but somebody's saying they haven't been formally released. So, well, there we go then. Like I've seen the internet wisdom suggest that unless you're making boatloads of money, you don't need to worry about this. So if you're not making $1 million, then don't worry about it. In which case, fine. Then I probably have nothing to. I'm probably way too small fry to have to worry about that. So, whereas that wasn't even clear at all from the Unity changes. Those were. I still don't even know what they are. Why don't you have a subscription button on Twitch? Tax reasons? No, I don't qualify for one. I would have to stream more often every month, and I don't want to. I want the videos to be the priority rather than streaming, and like I have to hit like a certain minimum number of hours. So like I literally couldn't unless I'm gonna be streaming more. Let's see. Once you complete the movie, do you have plans to play games on stream or just stream more in general? Um, Not really, but maybe. I don't know. It's I guess if people really wanted that. Have you considered having source filmmaker animators create civil protection? You write the script and they create the scenes. That's a hell of a lot of work to ask somebody. And plus, I'd want like some a lot of some of their personality can be expressed through the body language. So I would have to be kind of hands on for that, some of that too. But I mean, I would consider it, but like I don't, even if they got like 100% of the YouTube income from it, it might still not be worth it for them. So, uh, have you considered opening a merchandise store on your website? Yeah, I did in the past, and it kind of crashed and burned. I guess I should start again on it, but it's been like a lower priority for me. Plus, it's like, okay, this is probably well, there's two things. Like one, like let's say I had a shirt for $20, but it cost like $18 to produce. Well, I mean, I'd rather have just the $2. I mean, I'd rather have somebody just if you're sending $3, that helps me more than the shirt. But I can see where this could be a bonus thing. But the other thing is, I kind of consider us so mired in this stuff that it extends to almost everything we use anyway. But I mean, I do have like a very like sort of minor conflict that like, if I'm selling shirts, it's almost certainly using sweatshop labor. So it's like, yeah, almost a whole lot of the things we use are probably that or come at a terrible cost. But if I'm actively part of profiteering off of it, then it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like we're so mired in that anyway that I can kind of see the argument for just do it, but at the same time, it's like more of a reminder of that. It's like you're becoming. I would becoming more part of the problem. So I don't know. I mean, maybe some exist that don't do that, but I don't know. It's like my brain is like split down the center, where one half of it is saying it doesn't matter. We're fast tracking to dystopia anyway. This is going to happen with or without you. And the other half is saying, no, you shouldn't do this. So it's almost like the little angel and devil, you know? So I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, it's a lower priority. I wasn't kidding in the Begathon video when I said I'm not a businessman at heart. That's not what drives me at all. And it's just kind of like I try to keep it to a minimum. But yeah, I mean, I would want people having shirts. So I mean, I can understand people want a shirt. I could probably come up with a few good designs. So I don't know. I'll think about it. How'd you find those older PC games such as Construction Bob, Potty Pigeon, and such? Construction Bob, I played the shareware back in the day. Potty Pigeon, I played back when I had a Commodore 64. So, did you go into an archive site and read interesting plots and see if the screenshots look cool? That is how I discovered Bozo's Night Out. And actually, I plan to do kind of a raid on Commodore 64 games like that. But a lot of this stuff in the past that's the sort of stuff that was in the budget bin at the game stores. So I kind of organically came across a lot of like odd stuff that way. How is the transition to Windows 10 going? How do you feel about Microsoft releasing 11 right as you were switching to 10? Well, they released it a year after I switched to 10. But I mean, it's going all right. The GUI customization is still a bit precarious, but I'm working on it slowly. I'm Yeah, I mean, I mostly brought it under. It's pretty much under control, but yeah, I don't know. It's after going through an overhaul of it to get it to behave. I'd say it kind of feels like a side grade to 7, but there are some things that are more polished on it in terms of like weird little bugs. But I mean, compared to 7, so I mean, but it really was like a bit. It was an ordeal switching to it and going through so many things to make sure it behaves. So I'm saying Windows 10 shows ads too. It sucks. Not on mine, it doesn't. So what are your thoughts on real world space exploration colonization? Uh, well, I'm absolutely in favor of, I guess, stuff like telescopes and maybe probes to like nearby bodies. As for actual like space exploration and colonization, I think for where we are in time, wow, my voice is going a bit. I think it's kind of like a fantasy that distracts us from more important issues. I mean, it's not that we couldn't get there someday, but like, I heard an analogy like if you were trying to, like, I heard an analogy somewhere before. It's like if you were trying to develop flight back in like ancient Greek times. It's like the technology wasn't like you would need like strong, lightweight materials, which might depend on like metallurgy skills that weren't around yet. So it's like it's not a good use of your time for the technology level you're at and the state of civilization you're in. And I feel that way for a lot of space exploration. I mean, for like actually sending people out into space. I mean, again, I absolutely support like continued research and like, telescopes, especially space telescopes and probes. But it's like, it seems like a poor use of our resources considering where we are in time and what kind of problems we're facing as a civilization to me. So, I mean, see, if you're taking a non-nuanced view, you might think that, oh, Ross is anti-science. It's like, no, not at all. It's just that, like, it makes for much better fiction than it does reality. I mean, I'm having, like, I can't think of any, like, practical use of space exploration, like, at this point in time. I mean, maybe in hundreds of years, yeah, we could have things together enough for it, but I would think, like, well, I mean, I've probably said this many times, but I think containing ecological collapse would probably be like far, far better use of our time and technology. So I'm saying we do it not because we must, but because we can. Well, we can for how long? I mean, it's, look here. I'll say something controversial. The people who talk about things like a lunar base or a Mars base and think that's an actual alternative to, like, let's say something happens to Earth. Well, at least we have the moon base or the Mars base. That is just, it's either just ignorance or else utter delusion. Like I will stand by that 100%. Like, probably till I'm in the grave. Yeah, again, maybe in hundreds of years that's not true, but where we are right now, because those would be so utterly dependent on support from Earth. And even if you, in theory, you could somehow get enough resources and supplies over there, which would be just a massive, massive undertaking, then it would still be incredibly precarious, like far more than living on Earth. So I was saying it's like leaving home before you're even an adult. Yeah, yeah, like that, but more so. So yeah, it's like living out on your own when you're 5. It's except it's more extreme than that. So. But I mean, it's a fun idea. I like science fiction. And I think it's worth doing continued research on Earth. So like, you know, experimenting with like materials and designs and figuring out, well, okay, if we did need to develop a base on another planet or something, what would we do? And I think continued research along those lines is worthwhile, but it's like actually doing it. I mean, what reason is there other than symbolism? And it's a massive amount of resources to throw at for what we're doing at a time where life on Earth is, I think, going to become more precarious. So let's see. Okay, I'll answer this since I just saw it. How do you feel about Steam forcing users to upgrade their Windows whenever they see support for the older ones? It's happened to 7. They can't access their library anymore. In a few years, the same will happen for 10, surely. Yeah, I don't like it. I mentioned this earlier. It makes me want to make offline copies of a whole bunch of stuff. So I mean, on one hand, I understand why they're doing it, but on the other hand, it shows like how lacking the industry is in terms of preservation. Like it adds to the pile. It adds to the pile, Oh yeah, they would love to hear a rant specifically about the possibility of AIs remastering older games with new engines and visuals. Maybe even going so far as to add AI-generated voice acting to games that predate that being the norm and redoing Foley artistry for updated sound effects. Yeah, that could be pretty cool. And actually, one idea I had was to use AI image generation to update EGA games to VGA. Because I was thinking, I bet that's something an AI could do a decent job at. Because there were lots of old adventure games like that, where, a few of them got VGA remakes, but a lot didn't. Or geez, I think, what was it for platformers? What, Monster Bash and Crystal Caves recently, like in the past year or two, got a VGA update, full colors. When those were like EGA for, 25, 30 years? So it's like, oh, wow. I remember thinking, even at the time, I was thinking, man, Monster Bash would look so much better if it had full colors. So, yeah, it's what? Yeah, no, I'm for the idea. I think that'd be great. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna start skipping some questions. Somebody's asking quarter pounder or a Big Mac. It's like fast food burgers are all kind of the same to me. I don't know. It's I guess I'm not enough of a connoisseur to distinguish them. Although I don't have condiments on mine because I hate vinegar. So I'm pretty much just having like the beef, cheese, lettuce, tomato, onion, that sort of thing. So they taste pretty similar. Though I have heard with, I noticed when I remember at one point I hadn't had McDonald's for a real long time, and then I had a burger from them, and after that I started craving sweets more than I had in like months. I think they have like evil geniuses at work where they have like they add just the right amount of sugar to the bun or something to get you to like want more. Like they probably have this stuff down to a science. And I was thinking, it's like, man, I heard later they do some exotic stuff that's like, you know, for other industries, it might be borderline illegal, where they do something with the ingredients to like, they'll add like hunger hormone to it, like ghrelin or something like that. So like, man, they really, again, there are evil geniuses at work to try to make you want more if you've had McDonald's, it sounds like. So I don't know the details on it, but it might not, it might be more than McDonald's, but McDonald's is the one I know of. So yeah, that might be something to test. Next time you eat at McDonald's, like have one burger and see just how badly you want more, or something like tastier. Like see, like a good test to see if you're just hungry or if you just want something that's like specifically more would be eat, like if you're really hungry and you have like a bowl of oatmeal, you're gonna want to eat it. You're hungry. But if you want something like tasty and you're just craving something tasty, then the oatmeal's gonna be like, not really. Then you know it's probably the sugar or something else being manipulated to get you to want to eat something else. But okay, people are asking about monetizing Twitch again. I don't qualify. I have to do more of them, and I'd rather make better edited videos. Would you say you identify as neurodivergent? I don't know, probably. How do you feel about the Resident Evil games? What do you like the most about them? What's your favorite game? I am way behind, though this month I hope to start playing Resident Evil 0. I haven't played that one. I've played 1 through 4 originals, although I haven't played Code Veronica. Like out of those, I think 2 was my favorite, though the first third of 4 was awesome. So I still need to play the remakes. I still need to. I might skip 6. 5 I might play. I don't know. The 5 definitely looks like a summer game. Everything looked real bright and sunny in that one. Let's see. Okay, RE0 is going to drive you nuts with the inventory. Okay, well, I'll play it up to the point of if the game is so. What I found is if you have a really good game, but it has like a problem with it, it's an annoyance, but if the game's so good, it makes you want to keep going, you'll keep going. But if it's like the game's just okay and then the problem's making it misery, then I'll probably just stop and watch a playthrough of the rest. So I'll see. That's like, let's see. Yeah, 6 wasn't looking like, I don't know, 6 wasn't drawing me in. I'll probably watch a playthrough of that. I'll have to try 7 and what is 8 Village? I don't know. Yeah, they stopped. They pseudo numbered them. Like they'll just give the name, but then they'll show which one it is in Roman numerals in the title. You know. But yeah, what I like most about them? Well, I like the sense. I like the scare factor. You know, they are scary games, and the music is fantastic on some of them. I mean, like 1 and 2 especially. Let's see yeah, I mean just the general the atmosphere, the music, and just the spookiness factor. They're been good and scary. That's one of the reasons I'm like kind of hesitant about 5 and 6 is they went like much more action oriented, and when you're having like lots of action, that's not so scary to me. Whereas I like the kind of like you know, the tension, like the survival horror style. Let's see. Somebody's saying 8 is a bit cheesy, but so fun. They're all a bit cheesy, you know. Sometimes more than a bit. So, but yeah, they'll nail the atmosphere so well that it holds up. Yeah, okay, so for Resident Evil fans, are they going to make a Code Veronica remake? Because if they are, maybe I'll just hold out for the remake. But if they're not, at some point I should probably play Code Veronica too. I'm trying to catch up on the older ones before I move to the newer ones. So. Ross, you should look at interviewing David Shapiro. I guess it could be classified as a futurist. He talks a lot about post-labor economics, and his videos are fascinating to listen to. Well, maybe. See, the thing is, yeah, I mean, I would need more details, but like my knee-jerk response to that is that, like on what scale are we talking about? And if we're talking about on a large scale, how do you possibly like change existing power dynamics to make that an option? See, the way I see it, there's no end to solutions to our various problems that we have. The problem I generally see across so many things are that the people who have power and wield it effectively do not want these changes, and they're going to keep it that way. So if it's just like, oh, wouldn't it be better if we could do all this stuff? It's like, well, maybe I'll listen to it, but I mean, I don't know. That's where like my brain goes, especially when you're talking about like post-labor economics. But I'll look at, I'll try to check out some of his videos. I haven't heard of him, so it's because yeah, like I think I saw like a meme before saying it's like, could we have a 4-day work week? And it's like, well, it's complicated, and then they had an asterisk after it's complicated, saying there's about eight incredibly wealthy people don't want it to happen, and that was like the asterisk. So yeah, I mean it's yeah, it's hard to say, but okay, somebody's saying they doubt it'll be Code Veronica for the remake. Well, maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll move that one up then. Let's see. Okay, I should get to more questions. I'm drifting again reading this. Do you or did you ever have any tics? Not the animal, the like, you know, TICS. Maybe a few, like, you know, twiddling a pencil or pen. I would do that in class a lot. Sometimes like tap my foot if I have a lot of energy. What I do now, I think it's less psychological and more just me wanting to not let scoliosis get the better of me. Is sometimes I'll like lean back and I kind of crack like right here. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if the mic caught that or not. So I figure by doing that, maybe it's helping keep my spine straight. I don't know. Yeah. Well, there are the other tricks. Like, you know, you can also go with, this will probably show up on the camera. You can do like the rubber pencil trick, you know, make it look like it's, make it look like it's made out of rubber or something. Let's see. Okay, okay, this is a long one, the ad block stuff, but we talked about that. Okay, well, they may have more details on it. Disallow anyone from using an ad blocker from viewing videos on the website. Videos don't even load anymore, just a message saying to turn off the ad blocker. And even if you do turn off at that point, you still seem to be permabanned from watching videos at all, at least for now. Okay, so maybe they're banning accounts. Wonderful. Do you think this will have an effect on you and your channel? Yeah, I think it will. I think it'll mean less views and maybe probably less income. I mean, yeah, okay. Well, this sounds like the person I was. Yeah, they want to keep watching, but they don't want to deal with this. So, they're not paying for premium. Well, hey, if you want to help figure out what platforms I should mirror them on, because I mean, I'll try to find out, but really, I just want to go with whatever's the biggest one that my videos would qualify for. The kind of long form, can watch them all. So, did you ever spin the ruler on your pencil? Yeah, I can spin. Let's see. Do I have a book handy? Okay, well, I don't have a book handy here that's big enough. But yeah, I can spin things on a pencil, and I can spin a book on my finger too. No, I can do that one at depth, but I don't have any. It needs to be the right weight or size. Like all I have are like loose papers. Like, okay, this is styrofoam, so this probably won't work. Yeah, it's too light. It needs to be a certain weight, or not. Okay, I can do it a little bit with this one. It's so light though. Yeah, but yeah, if it was a book, I could do that indefinitely. Let's see. Do you think economic conditions shape the popularity of video game genres? Possibly. I don't. It's hard to say. I mean, that would need a lot of market research. I think marketing probably influences it more. And economic conditions probably influence like how many games total get sold. So, well, I mean, marketing and quality of the game. In Echo Game Dungeon, you mentioned how the design of these levels and the infinite feel of them. I like the design of these. Are there any other games that have made you feel this way? Okay, I want to say not really in the way that Echo did. The levels it just felt different. I'd say there was one part of Control that felt a little bit like it, but I was more impressed by the Echo feel for what I'm thinking of, for the surreal aspect of it. Yeah, not the way Echo did, because I've seen a lot of games with levels I like, but that give that kind of infinite feel to. The thing is, a lot of levels in Echo have this grandiose. How do you pronounce that? Grandiosity, grandiose feel to them that I really don't see that much in other games, though I'm sure there must be some, where instead of a staircase going up, it's like going up just like 20 flights, and just, or you have the banquet table that's stretching on the size of a city block or two, that sort of thing. Grandiosity. Yeah, I don't know. It's so I'm saying brutalist architecture. No, it's not the brutalism aspect of it I like. It's just it's kind of like what Echo was doing was it was taking this kind of elaborate, elegant kind of palace design, and then just kind of expanding that to these levels that look to just surreal levels, so that it's like nothing you would ever see in reality, but you would see elements of that in reality in kind of exclusive locations. So yeah, I'm struggling to think of others that kind of gave me like a feeling like that. But there was like one spot in Control that like sort of did. where he had like kind of these endless columns and heading off into infinity, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, not much. So, well, it's not just sense of scale. It's a sense of scale, and there's a surreal element, and it's taking something that's familiar but has like its own style, but then it's expanding that to a way that just would not that just doesn't exist in reality. So. Okay. Okay, I may skip a few more. Let's see. I don't plan on doing a game dungeon on Grim Fandango, though that's another example of adventure game with good writing. That one was never really my favorite. I mean, I thought it was, well done. Just, I don't know, the atmosphere of it wasn't quite my thing, but there's some people that rave about it and like that's their all-time favorite. So, yeah, if you're wanting to try adventure games, that one's probably, maybe you're in the camp that it is your all-time favorite. So, let's see. Okay. Can you give us a rundown on the current software and tech used to produce the videos in the movie? Have you tried out any of the newer webcam-based AI motion capture software such as Rococo Vision? Okay, is Rococo Vision the one that requires an iPhone? Let's see, requirements. Because I'm trying not to have to buy a freaking iPhone just to have, especially when I have stereoscopic cameras. Let's see. Because I'm kind of bitter about it because there was really decent software like almost 10 years ago that, well, maybe it doesn't. Windows system requirement. Yeah, there's several. And so the thing is, there's two different elements of it because there's body motion capture and there's facial motion capture. Body motion capture, there's a lot of options. Facial motion capture, there's a lot less, or good ones. So, but yeah, basically, there was decent, affordable software like 10 years ago. Apple came in, bought them out, shut it down, so only people who got grandfathered in could use it. And then, like many years later, they started releasing solutions that required an iPhone. And I've just been bitter about that, but like I'll swallow my pride on that if I have to, but I really don't want to go that route if I can. So I don't know if Rococo is one of them or not. And now it seems like they're kind of dominating the field with that. Okay, so there's a question people are saying I should answer. I've seen a lot of dead game restoration projects popping up. Would you be open to do a dead game news video to feature some of the more promising projects to give them support? I mean, maybe. It's just, I feel like for every one of those, there's probably 50 games that aren't getting that treatment. So it's like I kind of want to. My brain tends to be focused on like the weakest link, But I mean, I could give it a mention on the video chats. But if I'm doing like an official video on it, that takes a lot more time to put together. So, but yeah, I'll mention that on video chats if you wanted to send me the details. But yeah, that's why I'm trying to. That's why with stuff like AI or like I was talking about with the Dream software, like that would be like an all-encompassing solution. I want like master solutions to problems like this. So if you just do it individually, there's always going to be so many games left by the wayside. But I mean, again, I'm not trying to discount the efforts. Of course, I want them to do that, but hopefully you get where I'm coming from. I'm weakest link. Okay, skipping a few more. Okay, I answered this in a previous chat, but I watched some of Half-Life, but the AI is self-aware until, but I didn't get very far because it was just making me motion sick. Oh, okay, but yeah, to the previous question. I have a list of some stuff that, like, I've actually been putting some of the AI and animation stuff off just because I've been so busy with other stuff and I plan to come back to that anyway, that I'm hoping that by the time I come back to it, there are more solutions and maybe a more obvious winner emerges. I'll look into Rococo for sure, but I have like a list somewhere of several of them. But again, body motion capture, I'm not too worried about. Facial motion capture, that's the one that's, the options were much more limited last time I checked. But yeah, I will give full details on it once I've made the final decision. Let's see. I'm skipping a few more. You have to have more votes if you want. I think we're down to the negatives. Let's see. Okay, so you can start asking questions in the chat through @RossBroadcast while I read the few remaining ones. So I was mentioning I might like Wizardry 8. Yeah, maybe. I think there was one of the Wizardry ones I was meaning to play because I think most of them are turn-based combat, but like with the later ones are real-time combat or the last one or something. So yeah, that's one I need to check out. Yeah, somebody's mentioning Severance, Blade of Darkness. That's also on my list of games to eventually check out. Okay, let me see the live questions. Did you get a chance to hear exclusive Coup by Myro? I think I did. Or am I mixing it up? Let me see. Was that? Oh, ad blocker message. Okay, so not right now. I can't remember if it was that one or the one before it. If it was really had a lot of abstract music, I did, and it wasn't my thing. But this one might be something different. Forget. Doesn't a lot of Polish food have vinegar? How do you find things to eat? Eat the stuff without vinegar. Are you familiar with the soundtracks for the Risk of Rain games? I played some of the first one, but I didn't really remember the music of it too much. I guess I have to listen to it again. What Dungeon Siege enemies had the best hit and death sounds? I'm not sure. I mean, some of them are repeated in my head like a lot just because I've heard them probably thousands of times. Like, like the Krug, or I remember like the skeleton, or just like. I think for some of the skeletons or I don't know if I remember any that stood out to me in particular, but Dungeon Siege is kind of a game where so many aspects of it are kind of generic, but like all together, it's a lot of fun. So, has there ever been a company that has never disappointed you? Probably. I don't. I mean, if you dig deep enough in any, you can probably find problems. But let's see. I mean, there's been some I've had pretty. I've had relatively good luck with Dell for monitors, but I was like I did a lot of research every time I bought one, but. Let's see. How much of the funny things you've experienced so far will be in the movie, or at least inspired by real things you've seen or witnessed? Not much. It's mostly gonna be its own thing. I mean, yeah, I guess not. There might be a couple things, but yeah, not a lot. So it's gonna be much more for my imagination. Have you watched Nemesis Blue movie? David Lynch source filmmaker movie. It's really good. I guess not. I can add that to stuff. Let's see. Shrek those fish. I guess I don't know the reference. I think your new Freeman's Mind episode shows off the genius of Valve's level design. Oh yeah, I should mention, the spawning in that map is 100% authentic. Like we did not, yeah, the only modding that was done for that was, there was a level load transition where when you go down the steps towards the end, it completely gets rid of like all the ragdolls, and that was just too big a jump. And I had someone. So there's actually a level transit. So there's actually a footage swap that is spliced in just as Freeman's entering the window of that building. Like after he walks up the catwalk, there's a cut there that hopefully you don't even see. And then that cuts to that map. But everything prior to that was the vanilla map. And because that zombie kept spawning in that alley. And then I went around a circle, it spawned again. This was not me messing with the values at all. So let's see. It would yeah, we had a custom map for that level transition at the end just so I could walk down the steps and not have a bunch of bodies disappear. And there are 2 bloopers I need to record and put out for this episode. That I should be able to do that, but I should be able to do that this month. And I usually add a little bit more extra dialogue to the bloopers. So, okay. Let's see. What are your feelings towards book games like Planescape and Disco Elysium? Well, I need to finish Planescape, and I haven't played Disco Elysium. I mean, I played several hours of Planescape. I mean, it was all right, but I imagine there's going to be a bigger plot reveal. So, thankfully, I'm in the dark about what happens, but I know there's some sort of plot reveal, but I don't know what it is. How freaked out would you be if someone showed you a human skull that's a near replica of your own in terms of shape, and what would you do with it? I mean, there's probably lookalikes, living lookalikes that are extremely similar already. Yeah, in fact, I heard like at one point in human history we got, I think it was something like humanity got down to like 40,000 or 45,000 people before it bounced back, or maybe like proto-human ancestors or something. So there might have been some genetic culling like, millennia ago already. So, I mean, I don't really want an actual human skull, but, I wouldn't be any more freaked out about it than any other skull. So. My skull does look kind of weird. I've seen it once on an X-ray where I had I guess it's not really noticeable now, where I had kind of a bump on my forehead and want to make sure it wasn't some growth or something. But someone wants to know if they can have my skull after I'm done with it. Yeah, I don't care. You handle the paperwork. Okay, I guess that's all I have this time. So great. This is kind of the time. This is kind of the length of these chats I wanted to have to begin with. It's like 90% of them I end up going over, but yeah, I noticed there were a lot less questions this time. So it makes me wonder if there was just less people that saw this message, or if maybe a lot of them were all from the same person and I wasn't noticing the trend and they kind of cut back. So Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess Halloween episode's coming. What I think will be a pretty good game dungeon coming for November, and hopefully those at least one of the side videos coming out probably November. We'll see. Trying to think of what else. I guess I had the other announcements earlier. So, yeah, I think that's it. So I guess there's only so many questions that can be answered. Well, there's a lot of questions though. Okay, and I'll check out that coup music that he's talking about, or coup. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's COU with an accent PE. Yeah, and Halloween. Yeah, so if all goes well, then the next game dungeon will be out. Let's see. Yeah, here. Let's. I can make this prediction. Yeah. Okay. If all goes well, I'll release the next game dungeon by let's say the 27th or the 28th for Halloween. If it is not out by then, all is not going well, and I am working solid on it. So, and if things magically get ahead of schedule, maybe I'll work in a shorter one too. So we'll see. Yeah. Well, so yeah, you can try to guess what the next one's gonna be. All right. That note, I'm gonna go and work on Game Dungeon. So I'll see you.